Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 533rd episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have a returning guest, Chris Bolger. You may have heard him back on episode 240, way back in the day. That episode was titled From Homeless to the Guinness Book of World Records twice. I've known Chris for a while. We were in an intense training years ago. He came to the house, stayed with us for several days, and he's just gotten better and better. He's a performance coach. He gets into the emotional side of things. We talk about willpower versus perception versus emotional. We talk about what's the blind spot here. We talk about visions, goals, how to resolve your past by having a better vision of the future. So, like some deep things. But he's a younger guy, kind of wise beyond his years, I will say. He's a therapist, he's a coach. We get into why personality tests might be just crap, and he backs it up. So you're in for a treat, all right? Get ready to take some notes and get ready to do some thinking on some of the things that he says. I think you'll be surprised at how insightful this is going to be. And speaking of insightful, get my book before Thanksgiving, before Christmas. Makes a great stocking stuffer, 79stories.info. I'll even sign it for you. Now let's bring on Chris. From Homeless to the Guinness Book of World Records twice. That was the title of our first time having you on the show. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Episode 240, man. This is going to be episode 534. So that was a long time ago, but welcome back, man. How the heck are you?
I'm doing great. I admire your, proliferism, keeping the show running so strongly. Even
this insanity, curiosity. Oh, man. From Homeless to the Guinness Book of World Records. And you're still here alive and kicking and helping others do more alive and kicking.
I'm rolling, not kicking, rolling, just like you.
Nice. No striking.
Sure.
Like with Dora the Explorer, swiper, no swiping. You even know that? You probably don't even know that, do you?
I have nieces and nephews, yeah.
All right. Hey, it's better than Barney, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Trust me on that. Trust me on that. So what the heck are you up to, man? I've been seeing some of your posts, and you came out to the house years ago, did some interesting stretching and breathing and performance. And are you still doing that? And how does that tie into what you're doing now?
So that upgraded tremendously since last time I hung out with you in California. So just like everybody else who's a service provider or has let's say they're a transformational coach, a life coach, a mindset coach, a hypnotist, a therapist, I was hitting the same walls as everybody else faces, but I just didn't like the fact that I had to face it, which was you have some clients succeed and some clients not succeed. And even in business coaches, business programs, we've all been this is where I started to change my scope. When I came back to New Jersey from your place, I was running 3 different rehab centers that were helping people change their mind and their body and their emotions. And it was me and a business partner, and I would run them through different tests to figure out what's going on. And just like everybody else, I had some clients that had tremendously high, amazing results, like just people that were crippled for 7 years, and now they could walk after 1 hour. And then other people where they had like a small, little crick in the neck, and that just never went away no matter what I did. And same thing with the mental side. I would do things and it just wouldn't stick sometimes. And I couldn't figure out why. I talked to a bunch of people about it and no one had an answer. And then I realized that was an ongoing obsession I've had in the back of my head for like 14 years. No one knows how to give clients 100% results every time. No one can really predict clients succeeding. And no client can really predict that they're going to make it. And no one, it's like this really weird gray zone. And that's where I started focusing my attention. Back then, I was helping people with their bodies mostly. But I became more obsessed with the mental side of things because the mental side usually was the reason why they ever had a physical thing ever pop up. So if I focused on the mental part, I'd find different results. So it all got really serious when I took a business class, business program online. And it's one of those big, expensive ones that you hope to God that it works. and they promise you something like, oh, you're going to get 10K months if you just put in the work, and the information when I joined was no different than the last 4 programs I've joined. At the bare minimum, like the bare bones skeleton, I was like, oh, this is the same thing, just dressed up differently. Some people dress it up, as we know, much, much nicer. In fact, in ways that you'll never forget. And then others just give it to you straight, And then in those programs, there are people that were succeeding and people that were failing. I walked into this one specific program expecting to be the world's best client. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm urgently looking for this result. I'll do whatever it takes. And then I did everything that they told me to do, and they still told me it was my fault when I didn't hit my goal. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? They put it on me, and that felt really bad because I was doing everything I possibly can. And that's when I was like, okay, what the heck do I need to do? What's the blind spot here? Obviously, there's a blind spot. And then I found out after a few months of looking in that blind spot that there was multiple blind spots. So there couldn't be just one blind spot. There was about more than 40 of them. And 40 is an exact measurement here. So I found through other schools of thought, through occupational therapists, through other types of therapy, people that kind of figured out a small piece of the puzzle by accident. So for example, I found out that in school, like the first hint was in psychocybernetics when they said that they've taken first grade students or third grade students that were bad at math, and within 3 weeks, they made them better at math than the math teacher without ever changing or making them do math. It was all about changing their identity. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. So there's a blind spot. No one ever thinks, oh, I'm bad at math, therefore I'm bad at, I'm not a math person. And that's what contributed to their skill of math. I was like, okay, that's interesting. No one really looks at that, even now. And then I found through other ways, for example, like the ADHD is nothing more than people processing in beta waves. So if we can change their brain waves through external or internal methods, we've now essentially eliminated ADHD. So I'm like, all right, that's really freaking simple. What else is out there? What else other blind spots can I find? Let me just create a big bank of blind spots that can eventually apply to everybody. So I went back to a bunch of people I knew that failed business programs that I also failed with, these like negative people that wanted their money back, and they would talk badly about the company. And I'm like, well, listen, the truth is, like, that business program you took gets people results. That's the truth. It didn't get you results. So what happened here? What didn't get done? What wasn't understood the right way? Why did that person who's not as smart as you succeed in that program and make 6-figure months? But here you are with all this knowledge, all this expertise, and you can't break 10K months. Didn't make sense. So I sat with them, and I would look for blind spots, and I started coming up with a system of like a flow chart, like if this, then that. If this, then that. And I found out that it consistently, even up to now, there's been a legitimate language pattern that pops out when someone's struggling. I tried putting this system into a quiz to help someone figure out all the different blind spots they have, which I call it the perception process. The perception process, we can all move on with some definitions here, is a system of psychological processes where everyone kind of falls into, and everyone has their own unique ones. For example, some people are more willpower based, and others are perceptive, and then others are emotional. So those three, that group of 3 right there determines if someone should just man up and just freaking do it, if someone should change the way they look at things, or if someone should focus on their emotional state and get that in tune first. Here's an example. Let's say it's a business program, and all the 3 people, a willpower-based, a perceptive-based, and an emotional-based person. And they all have the same goal of hitting, let's just say, $30,000 months. The willpower-based person, if you tell him to just do this, post this, say this, do that, book this many calls, and come back to me next week, they will do it if they own the fact that they're willpower-based, meaning it's going to be hard, but I'll do it anyway. That's what a willpower-based person says. It's going to be hard, but I'll do it anyway. A perceptive-based person will get a different result because they think, change the way I think of things, and then the things that I want to do become easy. And then an emotional person says, change the way I feel, and then I could do anything. So you might have seen a business program that enrolls a new client. And this person is usually going to be a woman who's very emotional. She's excited. She's happy to be there. And then she comes back into the group, and 2 days later, from not even cracking open the content of what she just bought, she comes back and says, "Oh my God, this group's amazing. I just closed 4 clients. I haven't been able to close 4 clients in 2 years. I don't know how you guys did it." And they're like, "Wait a minute, you didn't even learn anything new yet. What changed?" Well, her emotional state was in a peak state. So now it wasn't about the how. The how is for the perceptive person, only the perceptive person. So then there's about 47 different perception processes that we all fall into. Now, to find your exact one, I was thinking, what if I put this into a quiz, like a personality test? Like, oh, are you the kind of person that does this, this, or this? But then I found another blind spot. Personality tests and quizzes, and what they do is they ask you questions, and you only answer questions about yourself in the form of what you think the answer should be, which means you get skewed results. I don't know about you, Wes, but I'm supposedly an ENFP, and on Saturdays I'm an INFJ because my results vary that much. So I don't know what my personality type is. I'm just me. It's the best way I can say it. And I met many people that had the exact same problem. If I ask you what your love language is, and you say physical touch, but then your wife says you never use physical touch. Now it's the same thing's applying. People will give an answer that they think is supposed to be there. But then if we ask them the exact opposite, say, well, out of the love languages, which ones are bullshit to you? And then you say, well, you can't sweep me off my feet. All right, well, that's physical touch out the window now. You can't buy my love. Okay, well, there's gifts. Sweet talking me doesn't work. Okay, well, that's words of affirmation. That's gone too. Now we're down to 1 or 2 choices. Whereas before, that same person would say physical touch. So I couldn't put into a quiz form. I didn't want to be another Myers-Briggs test that promises the world and then just fails with more than half the people that take. Also, people that used personality tests to become more productive, there's a major flaw with that. Another blind spot. If we take 1,000, let's just say ENFPs, which is a personality type in Myers-Briggs, and we assign them all the exact same task, 30% of those people on average will continue and complete the task. Despite it being a task they can do, despite it being in the setting with the tools they need to use to be productive, some still won't do it. Why is that? They might be an ENFP, but if they don't know how they uniquely process things, which is deeper than their personality, then they won't be effective. They might be a little bit more productive, but effective is the word we're looking for. Effective is where effort no longer plays a role in getting results, or effort plays the least amount of role in getting results. Your personality, if you're a healthy human being, your personality will change over time. It has to. If you're an ENFP for 75 years, there's a problem. So perception processes never change. That's something that'll be with you for the rest of your life. And if it varies so small that it wouldn't make much of a difference. So what I found that works the best, which helps me find out really quickly how somebody processes, is simply asking them about their struggles. If someone tells me how they're struggling and how they're like when someone complains, they're essentially giving me a 2 or 3 part. They're showing me a 2-part formula for how to find out how they think. They go, I'm struggling with X and I'm viewing it as Y. The struggle is X. Let's just say a willpower-based person, a perceptive person is trying to do willpower-based things. So willpower is like Nike, just do it. Perceptive is a little more complicated. It's not as popularized, neither is emotional people. But this is the problem, is that everyone's culture, everyone's ideal client is a willpower-based person. I help busy professionals do what I say so that they get the result that I say they should get. That's essentially everyone's tagline. But the majority of people we come across, only 20 to 30% will be willpower-based. So you will only ever get a 20 to 30% success rate if you're just focusing on giving out directions, tactics. Tactics work great for willpower-based people. Fantastic results. But for the rest of us people that have a little more complicated, that won't work. So a perceptive-based person is struggling with a business program. And they say, I'm trying to just do it, but I just can't figure it out. And that tells me everything. They're saying, I'm trying to be willpower-based, just do it, but I just can't figure it out. It's a cerebral an attempt. Or they say, it's kind of hazy. I feel like I'm running uphill. I feel like I'm walking uphill. I feel like I'm fighting the tide. It's going to be some type of metaphor that that shows that they're perceptive. So now what do I have to do to help them do the work? I'm not going to focus on telling them to just do it. I'm going to help them view it in a way that serves them better. For example, I'm going to ask you a question, Wes, and if someone else is listening, I want you to play along. If you're a perceptive person, this is going to work great. If you're a willpower-based person, you're going to get it right the first try. And if you're emotional, you might feel daunted by this. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask you the same question twice. Just be aware and let me know where your thoughts go when you hear this. So the question is, there are 999 tennis players, and they're in a knockout-style tournament, which means that one person goes against a second person, and then one person wins from that, and then they go on to the second round. But there's an odd number of tennis players. So every other round, one person gets a bye. How many matches are going to happen total?
Oh, crap.
Right?
A lot?
Yeah, you could say a lot. But what are you thinking right now? Do you feel like you can solve it? Do you feel like you need time, resources, phone a friend? What comes up?
Just some time.
Time. And that makes sense because you're a willpower-based person. You can pretty much do anything you sit down and pound out. If you had a pen and paper, you would sit there and you would just go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you would eventually find the answer.
Yep.
A perceptive person goes, "Oh, I need tools. I need to see this differently. I need to phone a friend who's an engineer who thinks differently." An emotional person goes, "Oh, no, I'm just not a math person. I give up. No, that's hard." Now, I'm going to ask the same question differently and watch where your brain goes. There are 999 tennis players. How many of them have to lose before there's a clear winner?
998.
Yeah. And that required no tools, no extra time, no effort. It just required looking at it differently. So the same task, and by the way, the first time I asked that question, did the question make sense?
Yeah.
It was simple enough, get it. Second time, same thing. So when a business coach is yelling at one of their clients, not all, but I've been in situations in the past where a business coach is yelling at a client saying, "This is simple. Why can't you do this? Do you understand it?" And they go, "Yeah, I understand it, but I don't know why I can't. I don't know." That's why. That's a blind spot. It's a syntax issue. When someone's processing the right way, when they're in their perception process, life becomes much, much easier. The things that they're trying to find suddenly start to find them. Here's an example of willpower and perception. There's 47 of these things. I don't want to talk about too many of them because it will seem daunting. Let's use the example of willpower and perception one more time. I have two friends, Anthony and Eli. Anthony is willpower based. Eli is perceptive. January 1st, or the beginning of the year, they have a goal of hitting $1 million in a year. But they own how they process. Anthony makes $11,000 the first month. Then he makes $18,000. Then he makes $32,000. And he makes incremental change. And he attributes his progress by waking up at 6 a.m., going to the gym for 2 hours, meditating, reading a book, having habits. And if he does that perfectly, he will hit his goal. So he has incremental change. That's that linear progress we all wish to have one day. That's only 20-30% of people. The other half, other 2/3, here's Eli, who's perceptive. Eli will make $280,000 in the first 2 weeks of January because he sees a way to make it work. He sees a brokerage deal, and he jumps in it and boom, takes control of it. But then he takes 3 months off and moves to Bali and does nothing. So he has 3 months of nothing going on, but he's ahead of Anthony. July comes around and Eli says, "You know what? I'm going to get back at it. I'm going to figure out a way to make it work." And he creates a program and then he sells it to these big companies and he finds a way to make it easy. So within the same month, he creates a team of 10 salespeople to go and sell it for him. And they make 2% of the sale. And then he figures out how to automate everything. So in July and August, Eli makes $300,000. Anthony has just broken $100,000 in July. So it looks like Anthony's way behind, but he has that linear curve. Eli's progress is like the stock market. It goes up, it goes down. Crazy high months, and then some silent months. And in the silent months, he did everything he needed to recover and get ready for the months that are going to be high again. December 31st, they both wind up with $1 million. But their progress in life looked completely different. How many people do we know, business owners, that they have a great month and then they have a slow month and they think it's the end of the world. When really it might just be part of your progress preset. That was predetermined that your progress was going to be like that. And if you know that in advance and you prepare and take advantage of it, you can then capitalize on the times when you do have high months. And when you have low months, you can just enjoy your freaking life. An emotional person, let's say the girl who comes into a business program, closes 4 clients, didn't close anyone before that, hasn't even learned anything new yet. Those people, their emotions are up and down. They're more volatile, but they're like an Oprah or a Beyonce, which means they can have insanely high amounts of power, but they can also have days, if their emotions go unchecked, that they can't even brush their freaking teeth. So it's extremely volatile. But when they're up, they stay up. When they're down, they stay down. It's teaching these people how to prioritize their emotions and mental state so that they're on all the time. And when you look at the mindset coaches that are out there, the self-development courses and stuff, they only ever focus on one of the 3 things we just talked about. So they have the same results. You can't put a willpower-based person into a self-development course and have them focus on their emotions all the time. They will be capping out their own progress.
So are people coming to do this to understand themselves or to understand their staff, or both? Like people listening to this, maybe it's an independent salesperson. Do they need to understand themselves better? Is this a program or a course that you offer for that person, or is it for the business owner to better lead their people or themselves?
So the answer is both. I usually come across 3 kinds of people. One kind of person says, hey, I have a company. Can you help me figure out how my team processes so we can stop leaving money on the table and increase our productivity without destroying the morale in the business? The second kind of person is someone who says, hey, I want to do what you do to my clients. Can you teach me how to do this to my clients? How do I become a better coach? And then the third kind of person that says, hey, listen, I'm not a coach or a business owner, but I want to be more effective. Can you just work your magic wand, just work it on me and make me more productive? And those are the 3 kinds of people that are just, it's so easy to teach and to use it on. I use this on myself, and I broke 2 Guinness World Records, and I did it pretty easily. It was not the hardest thing in my life, but because I was practicing with the perception process, the trial and error it took to figure out how I process things took no time at all. And you've seen me. I'm not the biggest, strongest guy. I'm 155 pounds, and I'm like 5'7.5", 5'8". So for me to break a strength world record, there has to be like, what was his trick? Well, the trick was that I was scrolling one day, looking at world records, and I'm like, I want to see what's possible for me outside of logic. Logic tells me don't even look. Logic tells me gain 400 pounds of muscle first, then check in. I said, you know what? This isn't about I'm perceptive. It's not about logic. I can make things. Emotional people, it's not about logic. Why should it be for willpower, for perceptive-based people too? So I'm scrolling and I see some records and I say, oh, dips. I'm good at parallel bar dips. I can do those. So I look into it and I'm sitting there and I'm like, no, these people that broke the record before me have trained 2 to 3 years to get there. But I'm perceptive and I know this. So I start playing around for 20 minutes on how I can view this differently. And suddenly I was like, wait a minute. This is like my 4th set at the gym. If I just push 20% harder and add 30% of weight, that's the record. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can train for that. I can hit those goals. And it took 3 months with that mindset. Every friend I've had, every business partner I've had during that time period, every family member told me why I cannot break that record. But I was so tuned into what I saw that none of it even touched me. I didn't need motivation. I didn't need a life coach to tell me I can do it. I was self-motivated. I didn't have to work to be motivated. It just came from within at that point. When I broke the record, it was pretty simple, pretty easy. I had some setbacks, like I had food poisoning the day of. Oh. But it didn't even matter that much that I didn't eat because I was tuned in. I was in my perception process, and although it was a little bit harder than I still shattered that thing. And then I taught this to a few other people, about 6 other people, and they went on to do the same thing. They had a different perception process than I had. They processed things differently, so it took a different approach, but the same results. So then I applied that to performance-based goals in general. And that's when I started using it on real estate companies, sales companies. Salespeople are very different. They have perceptive people mostly, emotional people for some, and willpower for others, along with all other things. For example, when you're on a call with a prospect and you need them to feel some type of pain of reality, or the pleasure of what could be. You need to make sure that they're in their perception process too, which is a split second thing to see. It's really easy to see. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I've had someone who couldn't make any sales. I didn't teach them any sales at all. I just said, show me your process. I have a sales background too, but I'm not a sales trainer by far. I'm not a sales whisperer. You go to West for that, 100%. But I said, well, walk me through one of your recordings. And they showed me one of their recordings that their client agreed to. And I see right there, you had this person going into the pain, or so they were dissociated right there, which is a simple one. Most seasoned salespeople can tell when someone's dissociated, when they're detached. And then I told her how to get them reattached, how to get them reassociated so that they feel more deeply. She started doing that. She closed 10 grand that week, 20 grand the next week, and 35,000 the next week as a fitness trainer, selling $2,000 packages. No, I think it was $1,500 or $2,500 packages around there. And she did nothing differently besides change the way she thinks about things, because she was perceptive, and then change it, small tweaks on her sales calls. And she didn't realize the whole time her sales process was solid. It was the prospect that was having a different experience than she thought. And then working with other business owners, I had someone who was making $8 grand a month, taught her no business principles at all, just the same thing she was doing, but I helped her get into her perception process, and I tweaked her sales calls. 2 months later, she was closing $250,000 a month, and she's still, to this is after a year, still closing above 300 grand a month. And this is organic marketing, no ads, just posting content, getting calls booked, closing them down. Nothing changed besides how she processes. And now her life is pretty freaking easy. Never having had it to add any rocket science, no crazy business strategies. She already had the strategies. She already had everything. She already paid a lot of money for that. She got those. She's in the masterminds and inner circles, but it still wasn't working how she wanted. It took a few conversations, and that took care of pretty much everything.
So is this, I've always talked about how most of our thoughts are negative and self-defeating. Are you entering, like, clearing up that head trash? Because some people are going to listen to this and go, oh, no way, this is hype, whatever. But, if you don't believe, I can give you Tiger Woods clubs. If you don't believe you can hit that shot, you're not going to hit that shot, even though you have the physical ability. So, people that are thinking this, like, what do you say to them that are the doubters or those still questioning?
I love those people because they come at me with what they think are the hardest questions. They think they're going to challenge, but it's like every time they ask a question, I just have to smile because this is another part of the perception process. For example, you said there, most people have negative thoughts. That's true. Like this, we all have that mechanism that keeps us safe. However, there are people, how do I put this, that need to resolve their past first in order to move forward. But that's only like 10 to 15% of people. Everyone else needs to focus on moving forward, creating a new reality, a new future. That's another perception process. That's this one I got from Donnie Epstein. This was internal versus external. And what that looks like is some people need to focus on the past all the time. And when their past is resolved, they can move forward. But that's extremely difficult to do for most people. On a percentage base, probably 80 to 90% of people need to focus on the future. That puts things in perspective. I've had so many people that were trying to heal the past traumas and let go of the story. And yeah. And I said, listen, how about you just don't focus on that for a few days? Just focus on this. Focus on building the future things. Pull the future towards you and send your mind out into the future. And through that, small little tweak, massive increase in productivity and effectiveness. And they suddenly say, oh my God, I feel resourceful all of a sudden. I feel like I can actually handle my life all of a sudden. We just had the pandemic, right? Well, still in it, I guess, especially you over there in California. I'm praying for you. But during that time, I had so many fitness trainers find me. And they said, this one guy in particular, there's many people like this, but this is this one story. He worked at Bally's making $30,000 a month as a fitness trainer in person. He worked 12 to 15 hours a day. He was in the best shape of his life, and he had time for his family still. He was operating on all the cylinders were pumping. He felt life was pretty easy. COVID hit, laid off from his job, or let go of his job, started an online business, which he used to run for 30K a month also. But now this time around, he couldn't even get 10K a month. He was working less than ever before. He suddenly had no time for his family, couldn't get the smallest tasks done, gained 15, 20 pounds. And he's a freaking fitness trainer. And he even admitted, he's like, Chris, I'm a fitness trainer. I know how to help people lose weight. Why don't I lose the weight? And it was, you hear that, you say, well, you're freaking lazy. If you're David Goggins, you say, you're lazy, get off the couch, get out there, buttercup. That's, if he was willpower based, yeah. But if he's external and he goes internal because of the circumstance in his life, he has to look in front of a computer, sit there and think inside of his head, he's going to drain his energy. The energy that you need to be resourceful, lies in where you're putting your focus in. Is it inside your body or in the past, or is it outside your body into the future? This is different from dissociation and association. Not the same thing. You can feel deeply on both levels when you do it this way. And this is where the education piece comes into play. He was internal when he should have been external, so his energy is now draining out of his body. He has no energy to do anything, even the simplest of things. The things that his profession is. What he needed to do was get his attention outside of himself. Go do an activity that takes him out of his body. And that will, when you get into a flow state for that specific type of person, a flow state in that situation is medicine. That's when you come back and say, you know what, I can do this. And you actually feel like you can. When you go to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Wes, you've been doing it consistently for a bunch of reasons, I'm sure. I'm sure one of those reasons is because it makes your whole life feel a lot easier. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those, it's hard. It's not easy. It never gets easier, right? You just get better. But it takes you so far out of your body. You can't be focusing on what you had for breakfast or what's going on in your life.
No.
You go on those mats, you're just focusing on the flow. You become the activity. Sometimes you move so fast, you didn't even think about it. It just happened. You're like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
How do I catch that? You're out of your body. You're in a flow state. And jiu-jitsu is great because the flow state grows with your level of stimulation, so it never gets boring.
Yeah.
That's an energy-giving activity. So if you ever hit a sales slump, or if you ever hit an obstacle in life, doing more jiu-jitsu was going to be the answer, because that is going to make you more resourceful. So that's another part of this. Now, along this journey of finding the perception process, there was one last piece that I still couldn't figure out. Why isn't this perfect yet? No system is perfect. I'm not going to pretend mine is. Everyone has flaws, but at least I know what my flaws are. Big difference. I'm compliant with my flaws. The last piece of this was an issue I was having, and that was I had a breathing issue. I had to take these big gasping breaths, and I was suffocating. And I speak for a living, so that kind of sucks. You have 12 calls throughout the day, and then you can't freaking breathe. I didn't know anyone who had the same problem I did. I was like, that sucks. So I went on a journey of hiring all kinds of specialists, physical therapists, breathing experts. No one helped me. Now that's physical. So how does that play in? We just talked about mental and emotional and everything else. How does it work with the physical? Well, they were working on my body, and it still wasn't working. It came down to me being perceptive. I was trying to view it in a way that everyone else was viewing it, which was like, oh, your breathing issue? It's probably structural. It's probably stress. Get some more magnesium. So I did all the above. I did everything. I would drink so much magnesium every day that I was in the bathroom 4 times a day. And this went on for a year, and the breathing didn't get any better. I felt relaxed. I could take a nap on cue, but that was it. And then I found a guy in New York City who taught me that breathing less gets you more oxygen. And then I went down that rabbit hole. And now I start to see that if someone's in their perception process, if they're in the process in the way they're supposed to process things, and there's still an issue, the highest likelihood it's going to be an oxygen issue. They're not getting oxygen to the frontal lobe of their brain. Oxygen, when you're depleted of oxygen, one of the first places it drains out of you is your frontal lobe. That makes high-level decisions, executive function, and pleasure. And your feeling of being resourceful, that's where that is too. The stress in your body comes from lacking carbon dioxide. If you're not breathing properly, if you're not oxygenating properly, breathing in and out through the nose only most of the day, or you're not replenishing that during the day, if you don't have an even keel of carbon dioxide, which is just as healing as oxygen. For example, last time you and I hung out in your office, we did the Wim Hof method. The Wim Hof method is great, but it also depletes you of carbon dioxide. So your ability to handle stress later on is now depleted. Your ability to feel resourceful is depleted. And the only way you're going to get back to that is if you do Wim Hof method again. So for a time, it's great. But breathing less and breathing slower and breathing deeper and breathing quieter throughout the day changes the way you feel about everything. You create this buffer between the outside world and yourself, and there's time to react now. And I've only ever felt that with either taking a drug or eating a whole bunch of baking soda, because baking soda is what essentially carbon dioxide breaks down into in your body, sodium bicarbonate. So breathing in a certain way was the last piece of my puzzle. So now, in these past few months, because this has been a recent discovery in the past few months, I've partnered up with that same breathing coach who's been doing this for 35 years. The guy is a maniac. I should hook you up with this guy. He is 53, ripped to shreds. Looks like a video game character, and he only eats fruit.
Huh.
And he's the nicest guy ever. He's so well versed, and he's the best at explaining all the science behind what we're talking about here. I'm not the expert there. I'm going through the process he did to get certified, but he knows everything. So I couldn't find it in me to know what I know now about oxygen. And it's such a perfect puzzle piece to what I do that to the perception process. I keep that a secret for the next couple of years while I get certified. I have to bring that in now. So I'm partnering up with him now, and we're doing a course together it's going to be on October 17th, but you might be hearing this in like November, which means at the end of November, early December, we might hold this again. It's an 8-week course that teaches you the entire perception process and the entire breathing process. It's 2 calls a week for 8 weeks. And I do the perception process, and then Brian, the coach, he does the breathing coach, he does the breathing part of it. And you learn so much about your body and how you process things in that short amount of time. And I'm excited because we've never delivered it in such a fast fashion before.
So you mentioned a couple of guys, David Goggins and Wim Hof. Goggins, of course, has a huge following, and, his story's pretty amazing. I guess he's a willpower guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I mean, is he doing more damage than good? I mean, or will all the willpower people just warm up to that, go be productive, and the others just like, yeah, whatever, and just let it roll off their back? Or might some of these perceptive or emotional people actually go hurt themselves because I'm a wimp if I don't do it, and then go push themselves too hard?
Yeah. So what ends up happening and it's not, you can't blame any one person for that happening. Like Gary Vaynerchuk, he's another one of those people. He has his own way of doing things, and David Goggins has his, and depending on how you process things, you're going to resonate with someone like that. Now, if you resonate with David Goggins, but you can't keep that same level of energy up there with him, then that shows that that's probably not your main way of processing. It might feel good. For example, I'm willpower and perceptive. Most people are going to be 1, a little bit of 2, and a sprinkle of a third, or not at all for the third. And again, these are only 3 out of 47 different factors. The other ones go even deeper, much, much deeper. But in this context, if you're a perceptive person or emotional person, watching David Goggins' motivational videos will make you feel like I can do this. And it might make you go to the gym. It might make you run in the winter time. But then eventually, if it stops, that shows you that you can be more productive than that. You can maintain that level in a different way, but that approach is not going to be long lasting for you. So when someone is a perceptive person, for example, and they're trying to be willpower based, they can keep a strong, willpower based people have a strong structure. They have to have and you're one of them, because I remember distinctly at your house, you mentioned this to your wife in passing. It was a quick moment, and I was like, that's interesting. She says, hey, by the way, so-and-so has to go up to this soccer game or something like that. And you looked at your watch or your phone, and you said, listen, if it's on the calendar, I can't do it. And it wasn't on the calendar, and all your kids are on the same calendar. That's structure. It's no coincidence that you can thrive when everyone's complying to the same rules of the structure. So structure for someone like you who's willpower based, that's going to feed your energy. You going to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu every single day, or so many days per week. You posting that you're going to church every single week. You have such a consistent track record. The podcast itself is consistent, it's prolific. You're just a prolific person at this point. We've always been. But these are willpower habits. So of course, you're the person people go to when they need help with their sales. You're the person they would go to because you're the one person who's operating the right way. By them hiring you and just simply being around you, they benefit from. But on top of that, you're going to give them your skills. So they're getting a double whammy. If a perceptive person tries to hold the same structure as you, they would feel like a hamster on a wheel. They're moving, but not too fast. And even how I just explained that is a perceptive way to explain that. I'm using a metaphor to explain that. An emotional person will be able to hang for a little bit, but then when they get drained, they'll feel like the world is crashing around them. They'll feel like the world is crumbling around them. They'll feel like they can't do anything. They should just give up. They might emotional eat. They might go back to regress to old habits. They might do bad things. They might sit on their ass and be quiet and close themselves in and not get out of bed for a few days. Anywhere on that spectrum, depending on the situation. So is David Goggins doing bad work or damaging people? No, there's still so many blind spots, and I feel pretty blessed to have seen all this stuff happen in real time. It's not that they're bad people, it's that there's blind spots.
Yeah.
Some kids are good students and some aren't, not because they're bad kids or bad students. It's because it's being taught in a certain way. If we had enough time, we talk about ADHD and how it really happens by accident most of the time.
Yeah.
And it can be prevented, and it can be eliminated in minutes, worldwide. But you can't market that, and you can't put that into pill form.
Well, we could talk forever, but I've actually got a coaching call coming up in 3.5 minutes. So we got to wrap this up, man. This is super interesting. This is a lot more. You are doing a lot more when we met years ago. Where do we send people that want to know more about you? They want to follow you. They want to get involved in this 8-week program. Where do we send?
Best place to do that and learn the most as fast as possible would be my Facebook page, and add me as a friend. Send me a message and say, hey, Wes sent me.
Okay.
And for you guys, if I'll give them a bunch of free resources, they can learn a lot more. I don't do sales calls. I do discussions. And that's it. If it's a good fit, great. If not, awesome. That's fine too. I'll refer you in the right direction. So for your
people, want to mention your page? I'm linking to your website. Do you want to mention your page?
Yes. The website was syndromeofjoy.com. That's to buy a $19 product, which is the first step to polarizing, that's part of the perception process. After that page, if you wanted to book a call to work with me, it's essentially a $19 sales call, and that's it in that context.
All right.
So my Facebook page, it's facebook.com/Chris the Hypnotist.
And that's your page, not your profile?
That is my profile. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Good.
I keep things personal. I mean, I had the big website and the ads running, and I have discussions. When I work with someone, it's a marriage, and I need them both to be us both to be on the same page. And if not, there's levels of that. There's friendships, there's acquaintances, there's other ways of making things work. So that's the best place to find me. And message me, add me, message me, and then say, hey, Wes sent me, and then I'll get to know you.
All right, cool. We will link to it. Chris Bolger from Jersey. Thanks for coming on the show, man. It's great catching up. Perception processes never change. Your personality changes over time. So he asks people how they struggle. Interesting, isn't it? So I told you, getting into this, these personality tests, are limited, but what does that mean? How do you use that knowledge to change your own life? How do you use it in your business? I love how he talked about, we don't answer them honestly. That is interesting. And I believe that, right? I think people do answer the way they think the hiring person, the manager wants them to answer. So you can see why that's a blind spot, right? Most of us have willpower-based taglines, i.e. task-oriented. Help perceptives view it so they see things differently. 47 tools. He hasn't even shared those 47 tools with me, so I'm working on getting those from him. And I'll share those in little drips and drabs here or, in the private group, sellmoreofeverything.com. And I do share other nuggets over in the Make Every Sale program, which you can download and watch and learn and listen at your leisure over this Thanksgiving and Christmas break. So get you some of that, all right? MakeEverySale.com. I love what he's talking about here, 3 kinds of leads. When you're a perfectionist, you must do something outside of your head to get into a flow state. Just good stuff. Good stuff. How do you get into a flow state? Do you even have a flow state? Do you know what that even means? When was the last time you were in a flow state in work? I think a lot of people have not been in flow since before COVID. And that's not good. So if you're feeling stressed out, burned out, tired, putting on some weight, maybe losing weight, you don't have interest in things, the things you used to have interest in, you no longer do. You might have some burnout. You might need to get some therapy, like legit. Find someone like Chris, find psychologists, therapists, get you some help. It may be just joining some type of coaching program, mastermind, somewhere where that you're not alone, somewhere you can be listened to and heard, somewhere that'll push you, okay? Find you something like that, either through me or somewhere else, but don't go through this thing alone, okay? Business and life are crazy. It's more fun and crazier when you do it with somebody else. But it's a good crazy, all right? Trust me on that. So if I can help you with that, let me know. Go to thesaleswhisperer.com, hit the contact us, pick a time slot, and we will talk. All right? But enough talking for now. Now, you need to go sell something.